Hi everyone, and this is nearing my bedtime here on the West Coast. It's like 9:18, but I committed to give you a 5-part story series. Yesterday was part 1, and I encourage you to listen to that, which was an overview of some things as well as some key questions to keep in mind. I will review those at the end and why the last 10-12 days have been just so eye-opening to me. Now, there are 4 different stories that all tied in together. And yesterday I shared the story, and again, if you didn't listen to it, please go to my Instagram page and listen to and watch and hear that one, because it's part of today's. The message that was given while first beginning our trek down after hiking with my twin boys, just us 3, was, we're in this together. And choosing that over the fear and judgment in my head, and not really thinking that it would end up being kind of a bigger life lesson. And so today is part 2 of we're in this together. Why? Because after being in Yosemite a couple of days, we went to a town in the Sonora Hills that we go to every summer and have committed to, divorced, while we're co-parenting. And there's a lake there. And big kids, little kids love it, because there's another bigger lake nearby where Diego can sail, and then there's the lake really, really close by where there's lifeguards and slides, and it's just really chill and just a great ambiance. And my ex-husband went there when he was a child, and so we continued that tradition with our oldest, and then now with our youngest, now divorced for 5 years. And we're there, we're going another day to the lake, and Diego is there with us now on this summer trip, and he decides he's going to swim across the lake. Now, it's not a big lake. It's totally reasonable to swim across this lake. There's a raft, kind of mini dock in the middle of it, and there's lifeguards on both sides, and it actually is like a perfect lake to accomplish the feat of swimming across a lake. So he begins, we're in like the kids area where there's ropes, and the boys decide they want to go with him, and I decide I'm going to go with them. The boys put on their kind of floaty things to ensure that they're going to be okay. And I got a lot more relaxed just knowing that. And then Bill ends up following us. And about halfway through the first part and the middle part, I started having the chills, and knew I was cold. I was wearing a bathing suit, and I didn't have my sweatsuit on. And so trekking along, and I start to get a lung cramp. Now, I punctured my lung and broke all the bones on this side of my body in July of 99. How long ago is that? Like 24 years ago. I wasn't breathing when they found me, and blah, blah, blah. That's all in the book, and I've talked about it. And it was quite a revelatory experience that I had. And so anyways, the physical symptoms and managing them are definitely part of my trauma and addiction recovery. And as I'm starting to feel these cramps, I don't remember having them that badly at all for years. It's probably been about, 8 years or so since I had them that bad. And then it intensified. And so we're swimming across this lake. I feel like can't really move my arm all the way, and it's this lung cramp. And as that starts happening, it really starts cramping, and my breathing ability to fully fill my lungs to their full capacity on my left side begins to be limited. And I can't quite take in a full breath. And at that point, I am colder, and my heart starts pounding. And along with the muscle cramp in my lung getting worse, I believe that I also started having like a panic. And it's so subtle, the mind-body-spirit connection. And in Kaiser's Integrated Pain Management, this is also part of the book, I learned, and I encourage others to read this part who deal with chronic pain. I learned about the relationship between PTSD and physical pain, and then vice versa. That if there is a part of my body that is causing irregular or really intense pain, that it can also trigger some memories. So of course, when this is happening in the lake, I'm not thinking about that. Nadia and me, I'm a go, and you know, I'm active, and I'm a young, 52-year-old. So I pride myself, in keeping physically fit, and I keep going in the lake, and we're having, a joyous time, and the boys are so overjoyed that we're all together and in this just beautiful ambiance. And I keep going. I do not recognize the intensity that I am going through with the cramp and the physical pain fully. I keep going, and it gets to a point where I couldn't take a deep breath at all. And I start to pant. And Diego asks, "Mom, are you okay?" And so I lie on my back, and I'm trying to breathe, I'm trying to calm, and the cramping gets worse. All, I believe, related to the chill, to my body just reacting to the cold of the water, which would happen after the car accident and recovery. Whenever it was cold, I would have lung cramps. So I lie on my back, and I cannot fully breathe in. I turn around and I try again, and the cramp gets so bad, I start to panic with my breathing, so limited. And so I raise my hand to the lifeguard on a rock way ahead of us, a fair amount of a distance, who was kind of watching, and thank God he was. And I just stayed on my back, and my breathing was severely limited by the reduced lung capacity, where that lung had been punctured and I had broke all those ribs. And it was a flailed fracture, so the ribs had 2 breaks on one rib, and that piece now sits lower on my lung. Again, this had not happened. And I like to live in denial of what are some physical ailments. And I don't, I admit I like to do that, but I don't so much do that anymore as part of my recovery, as part of my awareness of how physical pain can bring on triggers in trauma as well as other things. And so pushing myself ended up leading to this panic, this inability to breathe fully. Put my hand up, the lifeguard ends up coming on their surfboard. There's no surfing there, but I think they just have it for their safety measures, and gets to me, and I'm just so happy to have some relief holding over it, and the cramp does not go away. I'm still grasping for air. And so he assists me onto the board, and he takes me back to the rock, to the side where Diego and the twins, as well as Bill behind, are swimming to. And I simply stayed very focused, I didn't want to cause a panic in the others. Diego certainly saw in my eyes my concern when I looked in his ones about, I knew that I needed help, that I couldn't fully breathe and I wouldn't be able to make it across. And so it wasn't like some dire life and death situation, but there was a key minute where I was worried about my breathing and swimming capacity. So I get over to the rock, and the lifeguards are attempting to raise my temperature, my body temperature, as I'm, trying to explain in limited breath that it was a lung cramp and I couldn't breathe. And the story moves on. I get warmer. I lay there. My sons get on the rock. We're on the rock before. They're chilling, and they move over to this bench area, and Bill's kind of in his own world, my ex-husband, and they're kind of just doing their own thing. My son Diego did come over, and he's like, "Are you okay, Mom? And you should rest when you get back." And I was, "No, I'm fine. I'll be fine. It's still there, but not as bad." And so after a few minutes more, I end up sitting up, and I get up and I walk over to this bench. And one of the twins is kind of walking towards me, kind of coming my way, and he does this. He puts his hands like on me, grabs my hands, and he says, "Mom, we're in this together." Why is that so beautiful? Not because a child should feel they have to worry about their parent and that they're in this together caring for a parent. No, that's not what happened here. Literally 2 days before that, like I shared in part 1 of these stories, I had been hiking with the twins. We went on a journey, and when we looked back on the way down, we realized, how far we had gone. Completely close to the Yosemite Lodge still, but excitedly seen. And as we first went down, I said to them, excitedly, "We're in this together." It just so happened that 2 days later, 3 days later, that evoked a memory in one of my younger son's heads about getting through things together. And he said, "Mom, we're in this together." Reminding me that whatever my head was saying about however alone that experience might have made me feel, which it did, because no one really ever understands our story and our journey, and no one will really understand what it's like to have a near-death car accident and recover from so many injuries as I did. But there's certainly others out there, many, many, billions of people that can absolutely relate to physical recovery from an accident. Hundreds. And despite the fact that their father's kind of nonchalantness and kind of just like the aura at the time, the distance of it never really entered my phase, as I am in this mode. You're taking care and you're doing this all alone. Thoughts were in my head. My son simply saying that to me, "We're in this together," reminded me of the place that I had worked so hard to get to in life so that I could say that to my son. So remember, this overall 5-part story series is about a main lesson of banning shame and shaming. How? 3 main things. First, it's about choosing love every day versus fear and judgment. What the heck do I mean by that? I explained it more in yesterday, yet what I mean by that is we are all in our truest forms, not this body or mind, but infinite souls. Whatever you believe about what first started it all, there is something that we don't have an answer for. And in that space, no fear and judgment existed. And that is where we come from. So choosing love is choosing the soul. It's choosing the truth. Versus the awful experience of only living in our mind. Living in that running to stand still survival mode where everything is spoken and taken literally, interpreted literally, and our mind just gets on a ride of interpretations and some illusions in what people believe. And it also makes us so very vulnerable to the belief that what others say and do to us changes our truth. When those fears and judgments go haywire, that is when shame builds up in us. When fear and judgments go haywire in others, they then begin to shame, gaslight, whatever you want to call it. That's why this goal here, it isn't just about choosing love. This is about recognizing our fears and judgments so that we can ban shame. I chose love on the day of hiking and not my fear and judgments in my head, and said to my kids, hiking down the rocks, we're in this together. Several days later, 3 days later, as I had the experience of limited breathing capacity with a prior punctured lung, out of the blue, that message of love that I gave versus criticism, fear and judgment of why didn't you listen and we went this far? No, we're in this together. That message stayed in my son's head. We're in a completely unrelated situation. He had the sense and the belief in him. Whatever is happening with mom, whatever is happening with the family, whatever is happening within me, we are in this together. It was a beautiful moment when I realized how teaching choosing love happens. And that is truly living the work. The more and more that I have been able to listen to my own inner child, the little Nadia, the more and more I get to share and parent, be a conscious parent, teach the little ones while they're still little, hopefully, how to handle their own fears and judgments. Please listen in to the next story tomorrow, which is part 3, and part 4 on Thursday, and the last part 5 at noon live on Instagram, where everything is brought together. The second part is about a message that was sent, completely the opposite, shortly thereafter. I hope that you will follow up and listen to part 3. If you're listening to part 2, please go back and listen to part 1. And thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for supporting Home is Within You. And as a token of gratitude, I have a free ban shame tip sheet, which is actually 10 phrases that I use within myself and with my children that I collected over the years that help me in moments of fear and judgment to choose love instead. You can get that on my website, www.nadia-davis.com, for free. You can also order Home is Within You by using capital BAN SHAME, all one word, BANSHAME, on indiebound.org. You will get 20% discount. Sending hugs, wishing you a good night's sleep, and I will see you tomorrow for part 3.